Can a letter truly travel across 5 centuries? Think about that for a moment. 500 years. That's the span of dynasties, of empires rising and falling, of names fading into dust. Yet, in the silent, sprawling heart of Beijing, the labyrinth we know as the Forbidden City, there is a duty that refuses to end. A task so essential, so deeply etched into the stone and shadow, that the fabric of time itself has warped to sustain it. Tonight, we peel back the veil on one of China's most enduring and most chilling urban legends. It's a story not of ghosts wandering aimlessly, but of a specific, relentless function. We are talking about the Last Postman of the Forbidden City. He is not a figment of a drunken night watchman's imagination. He is a confirmed, recurring anomaly. A man dressed in the coarse, humble uniform of a forgotten era, appearing only after midnight, carrying a mailbag that is always impossibly dripping wet. And every night he delivers to the dead. No official ledger records his name. No historian can explain his existence. But those who guard the ancient walls know, when the city sleeps, his clockwork duty begins. Get ready, because these 3 accounts of the postman will fundamentally change how you view history and the things we leave unsaid.
Our deepest dive begins with the man who saw him most often and whose life was subtly, permanently warped by the encounter. Old Wei. Wei was a creature of habit. 30 years on the night shift guarding the former Imperial Palace. He prided himself on his unwavering skepticism. Ghosts? Nonsense. The most dangerous thing in the palace was an aggressive stray cat. That certainty shattered on a moonless night in 2005. Wei was near the Hall of Mental Cultivation, Yongsun Dian, the emperor's private chambers. The air wasn't just quiet, it was dead quiet. That oppressive, historical silence that makes your own heartbeat sound too loud. Then the sound came. A soft, rhythmic, almost hesitant shuffle. Cloth shoes on ancient stone. A sound that belonged to the 1800s, not the 21st century. He saw him. The postman. The figure moved with deliberate, almost agonizing slowness toward the inner court gates. His uniform was dark, coarse cotton, a minor servant's attire from the late Qing dynasty. But it was the satchel that froze Old Wei in place. It was a large canvas mailbag, and it was bulging unnaturally. It looked heavy, terribly heavy. But the most disturbing detail was the dampness. The canvas wasn't merely damp from the night air, it was slick. It glistened faintly under the distant security light, reflecting the light in puddles that dripped steadily, rhythmically onto the dry, cracked stone pavement. It looked like the contents were constantly weeping. Wei snapped out of his trance. "Hey! Palace is closed! Who are you?" His voice cracked. The figure didn't flinch, didn't look up. He simply continued his slow, methodical march. His face remained hidden beneath a wide, shadowing cap. Wei was driven not by fear, but by the sheer, unsettling wrongness of the situation. He followed, keeping his distance. He watched the postman stop directly in front of the gate to the Empress's former residence. The postman reached into the dripping bag. The sound was audible even from a distance, a heavy, wet, sighing sound like pulling a saturated sponge from water. He extracted what looked like a long, aged scroll tied with a dark ribbon. He placed the scroll carefully into the crack beneath the massive wooden door. He gave a brief, stiff, almost automatic bow the action of a man whose body remembers a protocol his mind has long forgotten. Then he turned and walked away, melting into the shadows. Wei sprinted forward. He arrived at the gate, heart hammering against his ribs. He looked down. Nothing. No scroll. No sign of water. The stone beneath the gate was dry, ancient, and dusty. The crack was choked with cobwebs. He followed the postman's route back. No footprints, no moisture, nothing. The sheer impossible contradiction of the event became Wei's burden. The postman's satchel was impossibly full, impossibly wet, and yet always empty. It was the weight of a duty performed not with physical letters, but with pure, unrelenting obligation. What kind of message is so vital, so essential, that it saturates the postman's very essence and continues to be delivered long after the recipient has turned to dust? Old Wei carried the memory of that impossible weight until his retirement, a chilling testament to a debt of communication that remains perpetually unpaid.
The deeper we go, the less the legend concerns the postman's body, and the more it focuses on the unreadable, ephemeral nature of his cargo. Our next source is Miss Lin, a bright, skeptical archival studies researcher in 2011. She believed only in verifiable, cross-reference data. Ghosts were footnotes. Lin was granted rare, late-night access to a dusty storage room containing minor Qing Dynasty documents. She was analyzing mundane lists, inventory, duty rosters, the bureaucratic filler of an empire.
One night, around 2 a.m., she paused, stretching near a high shelf holding an unlabeled, unimportant, antique wooden box. The room was cold. She stared at the box. Then she saw it. A faint, almost invisible wisp. It was like a breath in the freezing air, a quick, wispy vertical line of something rising from the box and vanishing instantly. She dismissed it. Eye fatigue. Bad lighting. She turned back to her organized stack of research notes. She stopped breathing. Resting directly on top of her materials, where no paper had been just a minute earlier, was a small, thin slip of aged, brittle paper. The paper was incredibly delicate, yellowed and thin, like dried onion skin. The script was archaic, a flowing, high calligraphy style. The ink was faded, a deep, unsettling rust color. Lin, despite the terror, felt the rush of the academic challenge. She donned gloves and carefully began to analyze it.
The characters were strange. They seemed to subtly shift and blur as she tried to focus, a neurological trick, she thought. But the script itself was unlike anything she had studied. She managed to decipher the address, the Chamber of Whispering Peonies. A thorough search of imperial maps and registers confirmed it. No such place ever existed within the Forbidden City. The sender was equally vague, a consort of the 13th year. No name, no rank, just a title defined by a date. Lin, shaken but believing she had found an incredible, undocumented artifact, photographed the slip using her high-resolution camera. She planned to report it first thing in the morning. But when she showed the photo to her supervisor, an elderly, respected historian, the man didn't express excitement. He turned sickly pale. He immediately called security. When they returned to the room minutes later, the original slip of paper was gone. More terrifyingly, the digital file on Lin's camera was corrupted, a blurry, pixelated mess, except for one detail: a single, clear, rust-red smudge in the center where the text had been. Her supervisor, a man who had laughed at ghost stories for 30 years, pulled her aside. His voice was a strained whisper. "The postman sometimes delivers to the wrong address or the wrong time. If a letter finds you, it means the intended recipient has refused it, and you, the living, were simply the nearest target for the transference." The Chamber of Whispering Peonies and the unknown consort of the 13th year remain an impossible cipher, a glimpse into a personal tragedy so profound, so deeply buried that the message it contained refused to be logged by history and now actively resists being seen by the living. It is an undeliverable message that haunts the archives, a whisper from a drama that is still, somehow, playing out in the dark.
This final account strips away the emotion and reveals something colder, something profoundly mechanical about the postman's existence. It suggests that he is not a suffering soul, but a program. Our source is anonymous, known only as The Flyer, a drone hobbyist who, in 2019, posted and then quickly deleted their footage from a high-end thermal imaging drone flown illegally over the Forbidden City at night. The Flyer was seeking unique aerial shots, not paranormal evidence. But the thermal camera found something chillingly precise. On their successful night, at exactly 3:07 a.m., the thermal feed registered a small, moving heat signature. Why 3:07 a.m.? Because historical documents show this time as the precise final moment the old Imperial Palace gates were historically locked for the night, the threshold of official closure. What was terrifying was the nature of the signal. The postman's thermal outline was incredibly faint, translucent, as if he were made of cool water, constantly evaporating. But he was moving with absolute, terrifying precision. The Flyer described his path as a perfect, pre-programmed circuit. He did not meander. He did not hesitate. He moved directly from point A to point B, pausing for exactly 30 seconds at each delivery site, an unnervingly consistent metric. The circuit the thermal drone recorded hit 3 specific points: a secondary entrance to the Imperial laundry services, the infamous miserable destination for consorts who had fallen from grace,
A small, completely unmarked rockery in the Imperial Garden, a place used for secret meetings and sometimes quiet executions, the main entrance to the Empress Dowager Cixi's private receiving area. The total duration of the circuit was an unvarying 47 minutes and 12 seconds. He would always finish back at the Donghua Gate, where the heat signature would simply dissolve into the ambient coldness at 3:54:12 a.m. The Flyer's conclusion was that this was not a traditional ghost. This was a residual haunting, a psychic echo so strong, so ingrained by years of repetitive, monotonous duty, that the very energy of the palace had recorded and was now replaying his actions in a perpetual, silent loop. He is not performing a voluntary action. He is trapped in the ritual. He isn't haunting the palace. He is the palace's last, lonely mechanical function. If this is a loop, what event was so essential, so emotionally charged, that it locked this postman's duty into the stones of time itself? Is he delivering a letter that finally releases a trapped spirit? Or is he merely performing a collection route, picking up unspoken grievances that the dead still send?